Gnostic Anthropology, The Secret History of Humanity by Samael Aun Weor. Chapter 3. The hour has arrived for us to make a certain analysis in relation to the origin of the human being. But, indeed, in the name of truth, we have to state that merely materialistic anthropology knows nothing about the origin of the human being. Nevertheless, we, the Gnostics, know the origin of the human being. In our former chapters, based on our Gnostic Anthropology, we taught some basic knowledge related with its origin. Yet now we are going to delve a little more into this enigma. Let us think for a while about the Mesozoic era of our world, on the era of the reptiles, 66 to 252 million years ago. The human being, indeed, existed at that time. Of course, this is denied by materialistic anthropology. Indeed, the merely profane anthropology ignores the real origin of the human being. Materialistic anthropology wants us to believe that the human being did not exist before the Quaternary period, the most recent 2.6 million years. The possibility that the human being existed during the Cenozoic era, from today back 65 million years, is denied to him. In depth, this is manifestly absurd. Nonetheless, some facts make us think. We ask ourselves why certain species, such as the plesiosaur and the pterodactyl, survived for such a long period of time and then finally became extinct. Now, in this day and age, we find from these species are fossils, remains, located in certain museums. Meanwhile, in spite of the disappearance of these species, in spite of the fact that they were extinguished from the face of the earth, the human being still continues to exist. Why did almost all the species from the Mesozoic epoch become extinct? How is it that human beings were not extinct? So many species have disappeared, yet the human being continues to be alive. How can this be? What explanation could materialistic science give for this phenomenon? Logically, materialistic science cannot give us a single explanation. Obviously, if many contemporaneous species of the human being from the Quaternary and Tertiary periods disappeared, then human beings should also have eclipsed from the face of the earth. The human being should have also disappeared. Yet they continue to exist. Therefore, the fact that the human being did not disappear in the Quaternary and Tertiary periods allows us to infer that the human being existed long before the Quaternary period, and even beyond the epoch of the reptiles, Mesozoic, or of the Carboniferous period, 299 to 359.2 million years ago. Moreover, we have the right to discuss the existence of human beings before the Mesozoic era. That right is granted to us precisely due to the concrete fact that all the species from the Tertiary and Quaternary periods have disappeared, and nonetheless their contemporaries, the human beings, still continue to exist. Gnostic anthropology, through superior systems, knows that the other species from the Tertiary and Quaternary periods vanished, and that the intellectual animal mistakenly called human being did not. This is because the human being existed before the Mesozoic era and before the Carboniferous period. These facts are clear to us. Facts are facts, and before the facts, we have to surrender. For example, there is a statement about the flying serpents. This is terrifically true indeed, and the Bible corroborates it. The Bible cites the Leviathan in the book of Job. The Zohar emphatically affirms that the tempting serpent of Eden was a flying camel. It is not irrelevant to remember that in Germany, a species of flying camel was found. I refer to the fossil remnants that were perfectly organized by anthropologists. It is 78 feet long, a giant. Its long neck is similar to that of the present-day camels, and was provided with membranous wings. When the fossil remnants of this body of these are observed, then it is evident that indeed it is related to a flying serpent, similar to a camel because of its long neck. These fossil remnants might perhaps belong to the Leviathan. What could the anthropologist state in relation to this matter? Obviously, the source or it's better if we say pterosaur, is in depth only the remnants of what flying serpents were in the archaic times of our Earth. We will conclude by stating that the pterosaur has more in common with the ophiodoid than with the lacertid. Delving further within all of this, we find many other species within the fields of anthropology. In the Imperial Library of Peking, there were paintings upon which some plesiosaurs and pterodactyls were shown. We ask ourselves, how is it possible that ancient people who did not know anything about paleontology or paleontography knew about extinct species from the epoch of the reptiles? If we do not know about the possibility of developing certain capacities and faculties of a transcendental type in the human brain, the former paragraphs would be inexplicable. Such faculties allow us to study the history of nature and of the human being, a history that lies hidden within the very depth of the memories of everything that is, has been, and shall be. Dear readers, for certain we must know that the present human species is not in any way made up of real human beings. It is true, no lie. Gnostic anthropologists are in agreement with profane anthropologists only on the issue of the origin of the intellectual animal. The intellectual animal comes from the Quaternary period, or at the end of the Tertiary period. This is something that we cannot deny in any way. First of all, it is convenient to make a complete differentiation between a human being and an intellectual animal. The true human being existed before the Carboniferous period and before Mesozoic times. This true human being lived during the epoch of the reptiles. Unfortunately, some authentic human beings degenerated terribly at the end of the Tertiary period. They absurdly mixed themselves with some beasts of nature, as we have already stated in previous chapters. Several gigantic simians were the outcome of that mixture. That species, in turn, mixed themselves with other subhuman beasts. Thus, the outcome of all of this were the simians that we know, and the evolution of certain humanoids. During the Quaternary period, these humanoids continued reproducing themselves incessantly. Subsequently, they continued reproducing themselves incessantly, and they are the humanoids of this epoch in which we live. This present humanity is a mixture of authentic human beings with animals of nature. Now we see the difference between the real human beings of the first, second, and third root races and the intellectual animals of the fourth and fifth root race in which we are presently. However, we must not be disappointed. The seed for the human being is still in our sexual glands. There is not a single person who does not carry these human sexual elements, since this is the outcome of the crossing of human beings with animals. Therefore, the possibility exists for present-day people to elevate themselves to a true human state, since they carry within their sexual glands those human seeds. Of course, we have to develop those human seeds. Indeed, in order to create the authentic human being within ourselves, we need to know the mysteries of sex. Unfortunately, materialistic anthropologists believe that they are human beings. They do not know anything about the mysteries of sex. They invent multiple theories about the origin of human species that are in no way useful. I think that all of the speculations stated by the materialistic anthropologists are causing great psychological damage to the people. It is lamentable that materialistic anthropology is corrupting the human race. It is already enormously degenerated, and within such fantasies, this humanity continues to degenerate awfully every day. We, Gnostic anthropologists, have to severely judge the materialistic anthropologists who state that they only believe in what they see. Nonetheless, they believe in what they have never have seen. They believe in absurd utopias, such as the one which states that we are all children of mice, or that the mandrill, the baboon, is the ancestor of those elegant ladies and gentlemen. We have to search for the origin of the fifth human race, which is this present root race to which we belong. We must find its cradle around Kashmir, on the central plateau of Tibet, around the Euxinus, etc. I do not mean to say that the entire cradle of this present root race had its origin only in those cited regions. Yet, in the name of truth, I have to state that those places of the earth constitute a very important origin for the human species. I am clearly referring to the people of this fifth root race. There have been 5 root races in the world. They correspond to 5 different epochs. We have already stated that the protoplasmic root race came first, afterwards the Hyperborean root race, thereafter the Lemurian root race, more recently the Atlantean root race, and finally our Aryan root race. Throughout these chapters, we will summarily develop the history of each root race, yet we will include a complete description of the scenarios upon which each root race was developed. Now, I want to state that the human being of the first root race existed as the northern polar cap on the sacred island. At that time, the northern polar cap, the 2 poles, were located on the equatorial zone. Unquestionably, the form of life that the root race was different from that of our present one. Materialistic anthropology does not know anything about this whole matter. Moreover, our assertions will not in any way agree with the famous Pangaea, or great primeval continent. Therefore, when we state such declarations, we expose ourselves to only one thing, the mockery of profane anthropologists. Indeed, profane anthropologists do not totally know about celestial mechanics. They do know there is a process of the revolutions of the axes of the Earth. They think that the Earth has always had the same position in relation to the Sun. Thus, for this reason, they have invented their Pangaea, since the theory of Pangaea is more comfortable for them than the study of astronomy. The Hyperboreans had their scenario on those horseshoe-shaped lands that go around the North Pole. Obviously, England itself and even Ireland were lands that belonged to the Hyperboreans. Alaska also belonged to that land, since all those regions form a horseshoe around the northern polar cap. Although some, even of these parts, have been under the waves, and have come up again since then. Later on, Lemuria was in the area that now occupies the Pacific Ocean. It was an enormous continent that covered the whole area of the Pacific Ocean. Subsequently, Atlantis was in the ocean that bears its name. Therefore, the physiognomy of our terrestrial globe has changed many times. The world has had 5 aspects or scenarios upon which its 5 root races developed. However, we do not expect that the ladies and gentlemen of materialistic anthropology will accept all of this. Unquestionably, this will be something impossible, since they believe that they know everything. Nevertheless, not only do they ignore these things, but worst of all, they ignore that they ignore. Materialistic anthropologists, who are partisans of absurdity, propose to attack the biblical Genesis. Thus, with their anti-clerical efforts, they have invented those speculations that are abundant here, there, and everywhere. They do not want to understand what the word Eden signifies. Eden signifies voluptuousness, giving pleasure to the senses. Its etymology is explained from a Greek basis. Therefore, Eden signifies voluptuousness. Eden is sex itself. The whole biblical Genesis is a work of alchemy that literally has nothing to do with history. That Eden, that in former times was situated in Mesopotamia between Tigris and Euphrates rivers, much later became the school of the Chaldeans and Magi's, the Alahim. That Eden seems to be related to the famous Adivarsha of ancient Lemurians, and even to the Garden of Hesperides on the Atlantean continent. Eden is sex itself, yet this will never be accepted by the materialistic anthropologists. Moreover, they will never accept the great sexual mysteries of Chaldea, India, Babylon, Mexico, and Egypt. In Lemuria, the system of reproduction was by Kriya Shakti. This was during the Mesozoic era. The Kriya Shakti system existed long before the human race ever fell into animal generation. We know very well that the Lemurian root race fell into degeneration in the 3rd part of the Eocene, that is, during the Miocene epoch. Indeed, the true human beings of the Mesozoic epoch reproduced themselves by means of the Kriya Shakti. This word signifies willpower and intelligence. Lemurians were true human beings, and their system of reproduction will not be accepted in this day and age by the intellectual animals. This is because the system of reproduction of the true human beings, the Kriya Shakti, is a sacred system that would cause laughter and rejection by the materialistic anthropologists. They would feel offended with such a system. In Lemurian times, sex was considered sacred. The sacred sperm was never ejaculated. The sperm was considered a venerable matter. A spermatozoon escaped during intercourse without an orgasm in order to fecundate the womb. Thus, the human race enjoyed wonderful powers, extrasensory faculties that allowed them to know all the marvels of the universe and the cosmos. This is why it is stated that they lived in a paradisical state. Nevertheless, when the human being fell into animal degeneration, that is to say, when they started to ejaculate the entity of semen, they then precipitated themselves into devolution. So Lemurians sexually degenerated themselves in the third part of the Eocene epoch. These sexually degenerated Lemurians were fallen humans who sexually mixed themselves with the beasts of nature. Thus, the intellectual animals were born from this mixture. Definitively, the intellectual animal will never accept this system of reproduction by Kriya Shakti precisely because of his animal condition. The system of the Kriya Shakti is not for the intellectual animals, it is a system for human beings, since animals and humans are two different kingdoms. Indeed, this is why we would not be surprised if the intellectual animals from materialistic anthropology reject the system of reproduction by Kriya Shakti. Nevertheless, in spite of everything, we have to state that the seeds of the human being are still within the endocrine glands of the intellectual animal. Therefore, it is obvious that if we work with the system of Kriya Shakti, we can indeed regenerate the brain and develop within our physiologic, biologic, and psychosomatic nature the true human being, the authentic human. Yet I restate, the intellectual animal does not like the Kriya Shakti system. Gnosis has diffused the mysteries of sex in many places. It is true that the universal Gnosticism has accepted the system of reproduction by Kriya Shakti. However, it is also true that millions of intellectual animals have rejected it. We cannot blame them, since they are indeed intellectual animals who are the outcome of sexual intercourse of various Lemurian humans, who sexually degenerated themselves in the tertiary period, who mixed themselves with beasts of nature. How could the outcome of humans and beasts accept a sexual system that does not belong to them? It is impossible. Thus, it is good that we reflect upon this. Now let us consider another more important theme in order for us to reflect upon it in more depth. Let us see, from where did all the living species emerge? From where did this nature emerge? Why do we accept all of the materialistic utopias? Why do we have to accept the dogma of evolution? Why should we live within the world of hypotheses? The moment has arrived to delve a little further into this subject matter. In my second chapter, I stated that the human species had developed in other dimensions. I also asserted that the materialistic ladies and gentlemen do not accept these superior dimensions. They want, by their own whim, to place us within Euclid's tridimensional dogma. They are like the pigs that always want to remain in the pigsty and do not want to see anything that does not resemble it. Yet, we do not accept dogmas. To begin, they have no proof regarding all their beliefs. What they have affirmed, for instance, is that they believe that the human being comes from the ape. Darwin never ever stated that the human being came from the ape. Indeed, Darwin only affirmed that the human being and the ape have a common ancestor. Therefore, Darwin only opened a door, that is all. Charles Robert Darwin always felt nonconformity with the biblical narrative of creation, because in the book of Genesis, God appears as an executioner for the non-believers. Nonetheless, Darwin rejected Karl Marx's offer. Karl Marx offered Darwin the dedication of his book, Das Kapital, first English edition. Darwin rejected Karl Marx's offer because he did not want to have his name associated with attacks against religion. Even while in states of extreme doubt, Darwin remained with a speck of faith in divinity. In the complete sense of the word, Darwin was never an atheist because he never denied the existence of a God. He stated in his autobiography that he always felt horror to all that which can cause suffering. He never agreed with the suffering inflicted upon a slave by his ruler or the suffering inflicted upon an animal by any man. For him, such horror was only one of the reasons to abandon religion. Darwin was not a materialist. He was an investigator. He opened a door, that is all. We have to take advantage of that door and delve into the mystery, since until now, everything has been a hypothesis, as when Haeckel stated, and who indeed emphatically asseverated, that neither geology nor phylogeny will ever be exact sciences. If theories that are invented one day and disappear the next day, if those ladies and gentlemen are affirming what they have never seen, if they are lying in such a way, then we must not and cannot give them any credit. Therefore, we must appeal to what Gnosticism teaches, which is to appeal to the wisdom of the ancient sages. The fact that the human race developed within our other dimensions is something impossible for materialistic science to accept. Yet for the Gnostics, it is a reality. The reason ancient sages could tell us about plesiosaurs and reveal to us the different beasts that existed during the epoch of primitive reptiles and periods even beyond that, such as the Carboniferous period, without ever having studied the paleontology and paleontography, without having such jargon within their heads, is because they possessed extraordinary faculties that can be developed. These are dormant within the human brain. Can materialistic anthropologists affirm that they totally know the human brain already? Obviously they cannot. Moreover, if I affirm that medical science still does not know the human body, they might believe that they know it, but they do not. Conclusion. What is the origin of this humanity on planet Earth? What is the origin of all the races of nature, of all which has been, is, and shall be? This is the theme upon which we need to reflect in this chapter. What do the ancient Nahuas tell us about the Omeyakan? What is the Omeyakan? It is stated that within the Omeyakan there is only wind and darkness. This is how the Nahuas affirm it. The Omeyakan is also named Yaoli Ehekato because of the wind and darkness. This invites us to reflect. What would the erudites from Mexico and those in Eastern world in Asia tell us about the Omeyakan? I once stated what matter is in itself. I said that any form of matter can be destroyed, yet the substance or seed of the matter continues in other dimensions. Thus the earth substance or the earth seed is deposited in the profound space of the universe within the unknowable zero dimension. I also affirmed that such an earth substance was the elaster. Eventually the earth would remain deposited as a seed within the profundity of the infinite space, awaiting a new cosmic manifestation. Let us remember that when a tree dies, its seeds remain. Within each seed, there is the possibility of development of a new tree. Likewise, when a planet dies, then its seed or its homogeneous, insipid, insubstantial, colorless, odorless matter remains deposited within the bosom of eternal mother space. Such a seed, in relation with the one, is two. We must never forget that in order to be one, there is the necessity of being two. The one feels itself to be two. Thus, the primeval chaotic earth, that seed world deposited in mother space, is the Omeyakan. It is a true paradise that during the time of inactivity vibrates with happiness. The Omeyakan is also named Yaoli Ehekatl due to the winds and darkness, and because Ehekatl is the god of cosmic and movement, the god of wind. Yaoli Ehekatl, the great cosmic movement of the Omeyakan, is a place where the authentic happiness of the world reigns, profound, inexhaustible joy. There are cosmic days and cosmic nights. When the Earth is in a germinal state, when any given planet is found deposited in a germinal state within the bosom of profound space, it slumbers. Yet, while being two, they are found to be one. After a certain period of activity, the electrical impulse, the electrical hurricane, makes all the positive and negative aspects enter into activity. This is why it is stated that within the Omeyakan there is winds and darkness. We do not want to state darkness in the complete sense of the word. This is only an allegorical way of speaking. Let us remember in the Egyptian mysteries, when the priests would approach the neophytes, they would whisper in their ears, "Osiris is a dark god." Yet Osiris was not dark. The fact of the matter is that the light of the pure spirit, the light of the great reality, is darkness to the intellect. This is why it is stated within the Omeyakan there is only darkness and wind, that is to say, cosmic movement. This is where the uncreated light emerges, from where the universal movement represented by Eckatal is developed. Before the manifestation of the solar logos, that is, the perfect multiple unity, the infinite quietude whirls about within the Omeyakan. In the sacred land of the Anahuac, the solar logos was always named Quetzalcoatl. Indubitably, Quetzalcoatl as logos exists long before any cosmic manifestation. The Omeyakan is the navel of the universe that intensely vibrates and palpitates within reciprocal worlds, where the infinitely large bursts into the infinitely small, where the large encounters the small, where the macrocosm encounters the microcosm. Within the dawn of any universe, the electrical hurricane makes all the atoms palpitate in the form of worlds within the Omeyakan, within the navel of the universe, within the cosmic womb, while being two. In the Omeyakan, Tlok Nahuake is the nocturnal tempest of all possibilities, because when the electric movement, the electric hurricane, the electric whirl makes all of those atoms spin within the chaotic matter, all the possibilities of universal life persist. This is how the best authors of cosmogenesis have described. The Omeyakan is the lord of the night, the black Tezcatlipoca, who, when denying himself, bursts into light, and the universe is born that fecundates, that drives the Quetzalcoatl, the solar logos. Tezcatlipoca, in its feminine aspect, represents the moon and godmother, who is precisely the womb of the world. This is why it is stated that Tezcatlipoca bursts into light, the mother, which as a matter of fact was fecundated by the logos, swells like a lotus flower, and then finally this universe is born. It is stated in Nahuatl that Quetzalcoatl then directs and drives the universe that emerged into existence. The logos, the multiple perfect unity, is radical, yet he turns himself asunder into the 49 fires in order to work with the rising universe. Unquestionably, the one who directs the universe is precisely the logos, Quetzalcoatl. It is the cosmic consciousness governing, directing that which is, has been, and shall be. I am perfectly sure that conventional anthropology would not accept this conception of Quetzalcoatl. We do not ignore that materialistic anthropology rejects the logos and that it is against the sacred Anahuac tradition, that it does not want anything to do with ancient wisdom of the sacred land of Anahuac. When rejecting Quetzalcoatl as the true monarch of the universe, materialistic anthropology actually declares itself against the wisdom of the sacred land of Anahuac. Thus, my dear friends, it is worthwhile that we reflect upon this. Nevertheless, it is not convenient that we Gnostics have an anthropomorphic conception of our Lord Quetzalcoatl either, no. Therefore, I repeat, Quetzalcoatl is a perfect multiple unity. It is the Greek demiurge, the Platonic logos. Quetzalcoatl is the prodigious principle of nature that makes every atom vibrate, that makes every sun shake. It is the creative fire of the first instant. Never could the partisans of materialistic anthropology asseverate that they know the fire. They do not know it, much less the electricity. We are interested in the fire of the fire and in the profound knowledge of electricity. They pass judgment of the fire, and they consider that it is an element of combustion, yet they are mistaken. Indeed, they might state, if we strike a match, we will see the fire emerges. So this is the outcome of combustion. Yet, it is not so. Rather, combustion is the outcome of fire, because the hand that strikes the match has its own fire in order to move, and within the match itself there is latent fire. By means of striking the match box, we remove the particles within which the chemical matter of that match is trapped, so that the fire can emerge. The fire exists before striking the match. This is the unknown in chemistry. The fire in itself is the logos, the fundamental intelligent principle of nature. Let it be clear that we are not defending that anthropomorphic God who upsets the materialists so very much. No. We only make a great emphasis here in order to state that nature has intelligent principles and that the sum of all of them is Quetzalcoatl, the Greek demiurge, the Platonic logos, the multiple perfect unity that is latent in every atom, within every corpuscle that comes into life, and within every creature that exists under the sun. There is no doubt, my dear friends, that monotheism caused a great deal of harm to humanity because materialism, atheism, was the outcome of it, consequence of it. In addition, when polytheism was taken to its extremes, it caused a great deal of harm because from it emerged monotheism, and likewise from monotheism emerged materialistic atheism. Thus, with polytheism degenerated, it gave origin to anthropomorphic monotheism. And due to the abuses carried out by the diverse religious clergies, this, as a result, brought materialism. If we accept the intelligent principles within the depths of nature and within the cosmos as the foundation of the whole machinery of relativity, then we will not ignore that variety is unity. I understand that in the not-so-distant future, humanity must return to the polytheism, yet in a transcendental monistic way. This must be equilibrated from the spiritual point of view, meaning from the spiritual monotheistic and polytheistic points of view. Only in this manner, indeed, can a renovation of principles and a complete revolution of the consciousness be initiated.